Let's look at the responsibility for prevention and detection of fraud. Who is responsible for prevention and detection of fraud? Yeah, management and those charged with governance are responsible for prevention and detection of fraud. So they should do the following in order to prevent and detect fraud. First is that they should create a culture of honesty and ethical behavior, because where there is honesty and where there is ethics, like employees will hardly commit fraud. Yeah, so they should create a culture of honesty and then ethical behavior, and then they should establish an internal audit function that reviews the system and controls and then make recommendations. So an organization is supposed to have an internal audit and then external audit. So they should have that internal audit that reviews the systems of the organizations and then the processes that we put in place. Yeah, for an entity to achieve its objectives. So it should have an internal audit function. The auditor also has a responsibility to detect fraud. So according to ISA 240, it requires an auditor to obtain reasonable assurance, like evidence, that the financial statements are free from material misstatements, whether caused by fraud or error. Yeah, and the risk of not detecting a material misstatement from fraud is higher than from error. Like you can easily identify a misstatement that was made due to error than identifying that was made due to fraud. And this is because of the following reasons. First is that fraud may involve sophisticated schemes designed to conceal it. Like if someone does something wrong, they'll try to cover it up. They'll try to do something that covers the truth. Then secondly is that fraud may be perpetrated by individuals in collusion, like maybe it was done by all the employees in the organization, so they all combined. So you as an auditor, you just be one person or you just be a team of 10. Like maybe the organization has like 100 employees and they were all involved in that. So it will be very hard for you to find the truth. Then management fraud is harder to detect because management is in position to manipulate accounting records or override control procedures. So management can manipulate the accounting records, like they can do anything. Yeah, when you cannot even have a say on it because they are the ones in charge. So it's harder to detect management fraud. So those are some of the reasons as to why detecting material misstatements from fraud is harder than detecting material misstatements from error. Let's look at the responsibility of an auditor in detecting fraud. First is that the auditor is supposed to maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit, that management may override controls and audit procedures may not be effective in detecting fraud. As we said, professional skepticism, it's like having a questioning mind throughout the audit and then being alert to conditions that may cause material misstatements, things like that. So an auditor is supposed to maintain professional skepticism. Secondly, an auditor is supposed to make inquiries and obtain written representations from management and those charged with governance regarding the following. Regarding the assessment of fraud risk. Secondly, the internal controls established to mitigate these risks. Thirdly, the process for identifying and responding to the risk of fraud. Then, the knowledge of any actual, suspected, or alleged fraud, whether management is aware of any fraud, whether suspected or actual. Then, regarding the evaluating whether any fraud risk factors are present. Yeah, so the auditor is supposed to make inquiries from management regarding those things. Another responsibility is that the auditor is supposed to design and perform audit procedures to find out the following. First is incorporate unpredictability in the selection of the nature, timing, and then the extent of the audit procedures, like to find out like which kind of audit procedures am I going to use, when, and to what extent. Then test the appropriateness of journal entries and then other adjustments. Review accounting estimates for bias. For example, inventory are just estimates, so review those estimates. Then evaluate whether significant transactions outside the normal course of business involved any fraudulent financial reporting or concealed misappropriation of assets. Another responsibility is that the auditor is supposed to discuss how the entity's financial statements may be susceptible to misstatements due to fraud, and the information should be communicated to the team members not present in the meeting. So the auditor is supposed to discuss with the management of the organization about the possible risks, the possible fraud risks. Then lastly, the auditor is supposed to communicate any fraud identified on a timely basis to the appropriate level of management and consider the implications on the audit report and the responsibility to report to the regulatory authorities in case the fraud is out of hand. So those are the responsibilities of management and then the auditor in prevention and detection of fraud. Thanks for watching. Do not forget to subscribe, like, comment, share with your friends. Let's catch up in my next video.